Daf Yomi tractate Bava Batra or Bava Batra, depending on your orientation, whether Ashkenazic or Sephardic. Bava Batra or Bava Basra. And I often wondered why that Suf got turned in, a Tuf and a Suf, Ashkenaz and what have you. But anyway, Bava Batra 11, top of the page, with the words Zelo Saimuha Kame. Those who reported the story to him did not conclude it before him. Consequently, Rav Ami was not informed that Rav had indeed given the money to the Gentile poor. Okay, we were in the middle of a story, so maybe it's good to recap the story. We were talking about how Rabbi Ami didn't accept money from the kingdom, and Rava did, but he criticized that Rabbi Ami criticized Rava that he should have distributed the money to the Gentile poor rather than to the Jewish poor. But it turns out that Rava did distribute the money to the Gentile poor. And that's that. Okay? Tanya, it is taught in the Braita. The following was said about Binyamin the righteous. Just met someone named Binyamin last night. Very interesting. It is the following was said about Binyamin the righteous, who was appointed supervisor over the charity fund. Once a woman came before him during the years of drought and said to him, "My master sustained me." He said to her, "I swear by the temple service that there is nothing left in the charity fund." She said to my master, "If you do not sustain me, a woman and her 7 sons will die." He arose and sustained her with his own funds. After some time he fell deathly ill. The ministering angels said to the Holy One, blessed be He, Master of the universe, you said that anyone who preserves a single life in Israel is regarded as if he preserved an entire world. Should then Benjamin the righteous, who saved a woman and her 7 sons, die after these few years, still in his youth? They immediately tore up his sentence. A sage taught they added 22 years to his life. 22 years. Okay. The sages taught there was an incident involving King Moonbaz. I wonder if this is the same Moonbaz from Tractate Shabbat. We talked about B'Shogeg, violating Shabbat B'Shogeg. Moonbaz. Anyway, there was an incident involving King Moonbaz, who liberally gave away his treasures and the treasures of his ancestors in the years of the drought, distributing the money to the poor. His brothers and his father's household joined together against him to protest against his actions, and they said to him, "Your ancestors stored up money in their treasuries and added to the treasures of their ancestors, and you are liberally distributing to all the poor." King Moonbaz said to them, "Not so. My ancestors stored up below, whereas I am storing above. As it is stated, truth will spring out of the earth, and righteousness will look down from heaven. Emet me'aretz titzmach, v'tzedek m'shamayim yishkaf." Psalms 85:12. Meaning that the righteous deeds that one has performed are stored up in heaven. My ancestors stored up treasures in a place where the human hand can reach, and so their treasures could have been robbed, whereas I am storing up treasures in a place where the human hand cannot reach, and so they are secure. As it is stated, righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Psalms 89:15. Store not treasures for yourselves on earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt. But store for yourselves treasures in heaven, where no man can take it. My ancestors stored up something that does not generate profit, as money sitting in a treasury does not increase, whereas I am storing up something that generates profit, as it is stated, say the righteous, that it shall be well with them, for they shall eat the fruit of their doings. Isaiah 3:10. My ancestors stored up treasures of money, whereas I am storing up treasures of souls. As it is stated, the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that wins souls is wise. Proverbs 11:30. My ancestors stored up for others, for their sons and heirs, when they themselves would pass from this world, whereas I am storing up for myself, as it is stated, and it shall be righteousness to you. Deuteronomy 24:13. My ancestors stored up for this world, whereas I am storing up for the world to come, as it is stated, and your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Isaiah 58:8. The Gemara resumes its analysis of the Mishnah, which taught that one must reside in a place for 12 months in order to be considered a resident for the purposes of issues such as paying taxes. But if he bought himself a residence in the city, he is immediately considered like one of the people of the city. The Gemara comments, the Mishnah is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, as it is taught in a Batra, that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, if he bought any amount of land in the city, and not necessarily a residence, he is immediately considered like one of the people of the city. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught otherwise? In a different Batra, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, if one bought land that is suitable for a residence, he is immediately considered like one of the people of the city. This contradicts the first Batra. The Gemara answers, this is a dispute between two Tanaim, and they disagree with regard to the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. And that is the end of that new Mishnah. Ein cholkin es achotzel, ad shehei arba amos lozeh, ve'arba amos lozeh. That's like Israeli Litvish. Ve'arba amos lozeh, ve'lo ha'ezeh sodeh, ad shehei bo tisha kavin lozeh. It's like, yeah. The court does not divide a courtyard at the request of one of the joint owners, unless there will be in it 4x4 cubits for this one and 4x4 cubits for that one. In other words, this minimum area for each of the joint owners. And the court does not divide a jointly owned field. Yeah, this is like Bava Batra kind of stuff. And the court does not divide a jointly owned field unless there is space in it to plant 9 kav of seed for this one and 9 kav of seed for that one. Rabbi Yehuda says the court does not divide a field unless there is space in it to plant 9 kav of seed for this one and 9 half kav of seed for that one. No, it's 9 half kav for this one and 9 half for that one. And the court does not divide a jointly owned garden unless there is space in it to plant a half kav of seed for this one and a half kav of seed for that one. Rabbi Akiva says that half that amount is sufficient. In other words, the area required for sowing a quarter kav is sowing a quarter kav of seed. Okay. Similarly, the court does not divide a half. The court does not divide a hall, a drawing room, a dovecote, a cloak, a bathhouse, an olive press, and an irrigated field, unless there is enough for this one to use the property in the usual manner, and for that one to use the property in the usual manner. This is the principle. Anything for which, when it is divided, each of the parts is large enough to retain the name of the original item, the court divides it, but if the parts will not retain the original name, the court does not divide it. When does this rule apply? It applies when the joint owners do not both wish to divide the item, when only one of the owners wishes to divide the property. He cannot force the other to do so, but when both of them wish to divide the item, they may divide it, even if each of the owners will receive less than the amounts specified above. But in the case of sacred writings, for example, a scroll of any of the 24 books of the Bible that were inherited by two people, they may not divide them, even if both of them wish to do so, because it would be a show of disrespect to cut the scroll in half. At the end of the Mishnah, the Gemara says, Rav Asi says that Rabbi Yochanan says the 4 cubits of the courtyard, which they said each other of the joint owners, must receive in addition to the space in front that they must receive is, in addition to the space in the front of the entrances to each of the houses that is assigned to the owner of the house for loading and unloading. That opinion is also taught in Batra. The court does not divide a courtyard unless its area is sufficient so that there will be in it 8 cubits for this one and 8 cubits for that one. The Gemara asks, but didn't we learn in the Mishnah that it suffices that there be 4 cubits for this one and 4 cubits for that one? Rather, conclude from it that the Batra was taught in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Asi. The Gemara affirms, conclude from it that it is so. There are those who raise the Batra as a contradiction to what is taught in the Mishnah and use the previously mentioned point to reconcile the two texts. We learned in the Mishnah, the court does not divide a courtyard at the request of one of the joint owners, unless there will be in it... I'm just catching myself now. I said this is Bava Batra stuff. Well, yeah, because it is Bava Batra. I was just thinking about Bava Metzia. Anyway, unless there will be, if you listen this far, unless there will be in it 4 by 4 cubits for this one and 4 by 4 cubits for that one. But isn't it taught in Bryanta? The court does not divide a courtyard unless there are 8 cubits for this one and 8 cubits for that one. About this, Rabbi Asi and Rabbi Yochanan said the 4 cubits of the courtyard, which they said each of the joint owners must receive, is in addition to the space in front of the entrances to each of the houses. Houses. Further, with regard to the division of a courtyard, Rav Huna says, a courtyard is divided according to its entrances. Each of the owners receives a share of the courtyard in proportion to the number of entrances that his house has opening onto the courtyard. And Rav Chizda says 4 cubits are allotted to each of the owners for each and every entrance, and the rest of the courtyard is then divided equally between them. The Gemara comments, it is taught in the Bryanta in accordance with the opinion of Rav Chizda. Each of the entrances opening to a courtyard is allotted 4 cubits. If this one has 1 entrance, and that one has 2 entrances, the one who has 1 entrance takes 4 cubits, and the one who has 2 entrances takes 8 cubits. And they divide the rest of the courtyard equally between them. If this one had an entrance 8 cubits wide, he takes 8 cubits adjacent to the entrance and 4 cubits in the courtyard. The Gemara expresses surprise. What are these 4 cubits in the courtyard doing here? Doesn't all of it depend on the size of the courtyard? Abaye said this is what the Bryta is saying. For the entrance he takes 8 cubits along the length of the courtyard and 4 cubits along the width of the courtyard. In other words, if he takes a strip of 4 cubits wide along the entire path, in other words, he takes a strip of 4 cubits wide along the entire length of his entrance. Amir says, a pit for holding animal food, a pira de souffle, has 4 cubits on each and every side, so that there will be sufficient space for the animals to stand. The Gemara adds, and we said this only when the pit has no special entrance to reach it, but rather is accessed from all sides.